Yeah. So it is there.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. And today we are, I think this one is also, yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. And today we are going to learn DCE 5, which is writing poetry. And writing poetry is one of a skill, and also it's an art. So sometimes what we think is that we can write poetry, and by listening to a lot of lyrics and songs and all those things, we think that it is very easy as a skill. But when it comes and we really start taking our pen and writing a few lyrics, then it becomes very difficult. After 2 lines, we get lost, that we don't know how to proceed further. So here in this course in creative writing, so we can understand that how to write a poetry. So these are the contents we'll be discussing today. One is symbols, the use of images, and the use of metaphor in poetry, and avoiding cliches. Avoiding cliches. The first one we'll discuss on what is a symbol. How does this symbol help us in understanding to write a good poetry? This symbol helps the poet to express complex, mixed, or intense feelings. It is a kind of a half revealing and half concealing its meaning when we are talking about certain phrases or a sentence. In a way, symbols or symbolism refers to the use of representational imagery. The writer employs an image with a deeper non-literal meaning for the purpose of conveying complex ideas. So I'd like to explain here that how does this symbol comes into being. First of all, whenever we have a certain idea, we create an image in our mind. That image, we try to give it a shape in the form of a thought. And that thought is, and then we transfer it in the medium of a language. So that becomes a concrete explanation or expansion of your image. In literature, symbolism is the use of concrete image to represent an abstract idea. So when I am saying about image, that's an abstract. And the whole image, this is one of, again, another constraint of language. Like the characteristics of language is that language is restricted. So this is a universal truth that even though we have a human language where we think that we can express everything, but we can't express in totality. Here we can express, but not in the whole form. But yes, through the medium of a human language, we can express at least 90% of that image we have created. So this symbolism acts is a kind of a concrete image to that abstract idea. So this with this example, it will be more clear that when we hear a word called rose, and as opposed to another flower called lily. So lily will give you an image that, okay, that is a beautiful flower and it has got a lot of fragrance and all those things. And we have different color shades of lilies also. But it is, we just take that lily just as a flower. But when we talk about rose, instantly an image also creates in our mind that, first of all, we think as a human psychology, we think that it is a red rose. So after that, when we talk about red rose, then we also try to imagine a lot of other things. We create an image of that color red. in a rose, red rose. But the same image of a rose, when we talk about its yellow rose, or it is a pink rose, or it is other color, then that same imagination or that same image of a red rose is not transferred. So I hope you got the point that when we talk about an image, it gives a concrete idea. So it is not that we have an abstract idea and we don't know how to explain that. When we try to explain that, that image gets concretized. Again, you can see a very famous poem by William Wordsworth in I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. Now, you can see that cloud is an imagination, it's an imagery, and we can always see when we look up in the sky, then we can see the cloud is floating. It's floating, and if there is a wind, then the cloud moves. So he is the author, Wordsworth is comparing that cloud with an individual, that an individual is also just like a cloud. He is also wandering like a cloud. So very beautifully he writes, and it says that I wandered lonely as a cloud when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Now here you see these daffodils are also not a common flower. These daffodils are also very rare to see. If you go in the mountain ranges, deep into the mountain ranges, you can see this daffodil flower. It is not easily available. Like this, you see, he creates a symbolism with that daffodil, and then you see a cloud and an individual, a person is there. So all these things create a kind of a symbol in that image. Okay, so here you can see that the poet desire an attempt to bring poetry as close as possible to the condition of the music. It is referred to as symbolism. So symbolism acts as a kind of a rhythm. It acts as a kind of a music, when we listen to this. So you can see, prose are never being transferred to songs. Only the poetries are transferred to songs. And that if the lyrics are not good, if the poetic lines are not good, then, you cannot put it into a rhythmic way. So this is very true. Sometimes we can see that we like a song very much. Why? It is not only the instruments, but also the lyrics in it. So the lyrics actually connects us in very many ways. It depends on our mood also. Like if you're happy, the same lyrics will give you a different connotation. But when you're sad, you'll see that the same lyrics also will make you happy. So you see that, the power of that symbol, so choosing the symbol or symbols in a poetry is very, very skill. It's a kind of a skill that we need to master. And definitely human beings can do everything. If one can imagine a lot of things, abstract versus abstract as well as concrete, then definitely we can give a shape to it. And you can see that these poetries are when you can see Wordsworth has written poetry, Shakespeare have written, and lot of other poets have written. You can look into your mother tongue also. There are so many poets who have written poems. But you see how beautiful that whenever we go and read those poetries, we feel so good, we feel so connected. So that is which is very, very important. When you write something, then like poems, then you need to make yourself connected to that. So that is that importance of welcome, Masika. That is that importance of symbols here in writing poetry. So in this poetry, we also talk about emotions. When we talk about symbols, we also are talking about emotions. So the rhythms, when we talk about the symbols, we talk about, this cannot happen once you don't have that human connection, human emotions there. That is not possible at that point of time. So emotions play a big role in giving that those lines, that life to that. It acts like a music there. So we all can experience half-expressed feelings, intense jubilation, deep despair, then frustrations, ambitions, depressions. All these things are there in our life. But this kind of symbols, when we start writing poetry and we add those emotions, however intense or however bleak, that actually creates a great impact on those poems. And if we are also asked to express our feelings, most of us will just mumble. Like, for example, if you're super excited and I want to ask you, okay, please explain what is the reason for your becoming so jubilant, or you're super happy, you please explain. Then you will wonder that, yes, after 2 or 3 lines, you will not be able to explain. You will say that just like that, I'm happy. So this is again, our restriction, that we also can't even express if we are happy. At the same time, if we are too sad, also we can't express. So I hope you understood that what is the meaning of this symbols in poetry. So again, if I also want to say that when agony, when you have a pain, you are depressed, it's so intense. Again, the symbol helps the speaker to half express and half conceal his intensity. So both expression and concealment have reached a high, voltage point. So at that point of time, you can see that you can also give lot of symbols to a poetry. You can compare your feelings to a lot of things, and we often do it. Why always writing poetry? Whenever we are speaking, we are in conversation with our loved ones or someone we trust, a friend. That time you can see that you compare your feelings with lot of things which you have experienced in the past. So that actually gives that receiver or the person who is listening to understand that the intensity of your agony or the intensity of your happiness. Okay. So as I said, symbol and image both go hand in hand. You cannot create a symbol without an image. That image has to be there. And this image it does not come by its own. You live to a situation, a context, and then that image is created. And to give a life to that image, you create a symbol. Okay, and if you can explore, you'll find lot of examples where you can see that you have created, you can symbolize through your emotions. So in the next one, when we talk about images, you'll understand that how images are created. Let me go to the next slide. So it's image. Here, the use of image in poetry is the root of all poetry images, which may be literal, perceptual, or conceptual. So I hope you know what is literal. Literal means something which is concrete. Perceptual means you are just trying to assume that, or you make it like, as real. And conceptual means you give an idea to that, you frame it. So these are the 3 ways, you can use that image in a poetry. So what does this image do? Image creates an imagery or virtual canvas of a concept which can be converted to an idea or a thought. So the term imagery is used to suggest the representation of sensory or extrasensory experiences through the medium of any human language. So again, as I said, human language is restricted. I can give you one small example, like you visit a doctor and you are having a stomach ache. And the doctor asks you that how severe is the pain. So you say that, yes, doctor, it's very painful. Then with this, whatever you say, on the basis of this, the doctor is diagnosing your problem. But if you say that the pain, what kind of pain it is, if he's not able to find out, how severe the pain is, after you have said that, it is painful, then you can see that he will ask you a lot of other questions. He'll say that, okay, which side is the pain is more? You will show that this side, left side or right side. And you can also further say that it is an acute pain, intense pain, but still you are not able to express that actually what is the level of your pain. So here also you can see that human languages are restrictive. So not only pain, you can look into all kind of your olfactory, like you are you like sweets. So somebody is asking you that what kind of sweets you like. So, we immediately go and say that, okay, I like Cadbury, I like desserts, I like ice creams, okay? But here the question is that what is the level of the sweetness you want in your sweet? So this is where, again, we fail to express that what is that, how to express that sweet. Okay, so you can see any kind of your five senses which is working. You can't explain those abstract things. But yes, again, I'm going back to our previous slide, that symbols. Symbols, when you relate your emotion to a particular thing, then you can at least make it understand that, what is that connection of your that abstract idea with that symbol. Right? So this images, can be visual, it can be auditory, olfactory, tactile, abstract, or kinesthetic. So I hope all these terms. So visual, that it is what you see, what you perceive through your eyes. Auditory is what you listen, how you listen. There's a difference between you hear something and you listen something. So there's a big difference. When you hear something, you don't pay much attention. But when you listen something, you really put an effort to understand that what you're hearing. So that is called listening skill. Then olfactory is all your senses, okay? All your senses together. Then you have your, tactile, then abstract or kinesthetics, so many other things, it is where, we talk about abstract ideas. So all these things in totality, gives you that image, that creates an image, okay? And all these things you can see very much induced in poetry writing. So it can be verbal or non-verbal representation of images, or it can be a combination to form a real action. So these images are created because you want to perform an action. So if you don't want to perform any action, then you don't want to create an image. So in the last class, I also have said that we don't speak if you don't want to. If there is a need, only then we speak. If there is no need, you can check. If there is no need, we don't speak. We don't speak at all. Even at your home also, even there are a lot of people sitting beside you and you don't have a need, you don't speak. So we speak when it is when you need to speak, or somebody asks us something, only then we speak. Okay. So images can be used in varied ways, and this imagery should be well thought out so that it suits the context. So when we are talking about the context, so we have to give a different kind of a image to it. But see, on the other hand, if you're writing a novel or you're writing a drama, so the length of that story writing is very big. You cannot say that, okay, I can conclude my story in this many lines. You can expand it as much as you can. But poetry does not allow you that. Okay, poetry has a restriction, and within that restriction, you have to create that intensity. You have to have an effective writing skill when it comes to poetry writing. So images help to realize the increased depths, concentration, and imaginative significance of what is presented in the poem or poetry. So, as I said, it can be both verbal and non-verbal images, and the two may be used together in a drama, which imagery merges into stage action. Okay. So we should at least take care of here when we are talking about image. We should take care of here if we try to distinguish or find out the difference between prose and poetry in the use of images. So as I said again, I'm repeating that in prose the image can be expanded a lot. You have a big scope, of expansion, but in poetry it is limited. Okay, so this is where that imagery comes into being in writing a poetry. So next one, if you will understand with the next slide more, that is the use of metaphor in a poetry. So please understand this when you want to create a rhythm in a poem. In writing poetry, you want to create a rhythm. You need to have all these factors, there. One is we talked about symbols, we talked about images, and now we are going back to going to see how the metaphor, works in writing poetry. So first of all, understand what is a metaphor. Metaphor in poetry is based on comparison between two dissimilar things, widening its significance and power. So there are two different things. Don't get confused with what is symbol, what is image, and what is metaphor. Okay, metaphor is also not a transition of one to the other, but you are comparing two dissimilar things and giving it an impact. Okay, you are raising you're raising the power and the effect of that sentences you are adding into the poetry. So metaphor is a common poetic device where an object or the subject of a poem is described as being the same as another otherwise unrelated object. Now I have written down, four examples here, and you can see that you can just take one first one. Life is a highway. Life is a highway. So what do you think when we are talking about life is a highway? Yes, Masika, if you can highlight on this. Life is a highway. How do you understand this sentence? Yeah, Masika, have you heard life is a highway? What is highway here? Highway is a straight, you can see there is no red light and all, and you can just, it's a kind of an expressway where there are no obstruction, no red lights, no police check. So you can, ride on that highway at a speed limit. There is also a speed limit, say you can cross 80 also or 120 also. So there, it is, again, that highway is something that you are in the control of your life. So if you are riding a car, then in the driver's seat, you have to take control of it. If you are driving in a 120 kilometer per hour, then you are the pilot of that car. So it is not giving any warning. So you must see that, if you're in a highway, your life and those who are sitting inside the car, including the driver, should take care of themselves. So this is compared. This is that highway is compared to a human life. So human life is also like this. You want to run. There is nobody is stopping you. You can run as per your limit. You can run, but don't fall down. So this is a kind of what is that warning given to you. If you want to run with a caution. So this is why, this is a very nice metaphor when you say about, life is a highway. Now, the second one, you can say her eyes were diamonds. Now you can see the diamonds, who doesn't like diamonds? So we all love, the diamonds, even if we are not wearing one. But if you, take a diamond in your hand and you see, and you can see that the light which emits from it, the cuts and all those things, you appreciate that stone, okay, that diamond. So it is compared that with this a girl's eye is compared to that diamond, right? So the next one, you can see that he is a shining star. He is a shining star. Now look at that star. Who is that star? That star which we see in the sky. Okay, at night we see this star, and it keeps on sparkling. Okay, so it is again, how you imagine that star. When you look at the star, what is your reaction? How do you visualize that star? So generally, every human being will say that the star is shining bright. Okay, the star is twinkling. So this kind of words we use with while defining a star, right? So that image is being transferred to a person, whose eyes, whose life is just like that star. So he is a shining star. That means his life is so bright. He is the star of his class. He is the star of the family. He is the star of a nation. So you can go on and on and on, describing that shining star compared to a human being. Next one, you can see the snow is a white blanket. So the snow is a white blanket. So you can see your white blanket. Which is it referring? The snow or the white blanket? Which one is compared with whom? The snow is compared to a white blanket, or white blanket is compared to the snow? Yes, Masika, if you can speak, it will be good. Which one do you think? Yeah. Okay, I leave this one to you for, you think and you tell me after the class. Okay, the snow is compared to the white blanket, or the white blanket is compared to the snow? Okay, so I leave this question here to you, and we can discuss after the class. So here, a metaphor compares two things directly without using like or as. Here, the subject itself is the object. So metaphors are more direct than similes. I hope you know what is a simile. So which can make them seem stronger or more surprising. Okay, so we often do this. We often do this in our daily, use of language. We also do this many a times. We compare with not only with our emotions, but we also compare any kind of objects, or a cuisine, or your clothes, or your rituals, or anything, which a human being performs in the daily life. We use such kind of metaphors in life. So this metaphors also gives a very effective point in writing that poetry. Actually, when we write poetry should not be monotonous. It should create an exciting thing in a human mind when you read poetry. So it transfers you to a different level of understanding. When you read a poetry, a long poetry, when you read, and you can see that how intense that expression is. So, and you can move from your current state to a different world where you really understand the lines written down in the poetry. So we go to the next one, next slide, where we talk about why we should avoid cliches. We should avoid cliches in a poetry. So let's understand that what is a cliche. A cliche is a French word, coming from a French word which means stereotype. So it is an expression that was once innovative, but has lost its novelty due to overuse. That is a phrase that is due to overuse. It is seen as lacking in substance or originality. So newer kind of poetry, when we are writing these days in this 21st century, when we are writing poetry, this kind of cliches are generally avoided. Why? Because this kind of cliches are so much used in our personal life that these cliches does not literally suits, in the poetry. So it is better that we avoid such kind of cliches, while we write poetry, which are so stereotypes. So because you see, as men progresses in their knowledge and the use of the language, you can have so many use of a single, single cliches in life that, sometimes it gets very redundant, and it doesn't suit best. So the more you move forward with human civilization, the more you should be more trendier and not avoid those things are so stereotypes, means which are being so much used in real life also. So these cliches can be used in journalism and report writing, or a narrative kind of thing, but in poetry it should be avoided. So because poetry does not accept anything which is stale. So if you want to sit down now and you want to write just like Shakespeare or Wordsworth or Robert Frost, then you cannot do it. That language was different at that time. Today's new world, new language, the language always moves and progresses. Okay. So you have to be with the time. So when you keep the time in a factor, then definitely you should always allow yourself to have, or you can coin, or you can make, you can create new words to fit that context, to fit that situation. All right. So it should be either, it should be given a kind of a twist. If you don't find a suitable kind of words or phrases, then you can also twist that. You can have a very interesting other kind of devices in the poetry, to create that irony or contrast or similarities. You can do a lot of experiments with the words. So if at all you want to give it a new taste, new essence in the poetry. Okay, so remember that the essence of a poetry is very, very intense than the essence of a story. Okay, story, you can have everything is being explicitly being said and written down. When you read, there is no imagination at play. But when you read a poetry, then there are a lot of imaginations. It depends where you are, what kind of experiences you have, what language that poetry you are reading. All these things, is there. These are very serious factors, while you understand a poetry. So that essence, the more the essence, that means you understand every factor of it. So, and then it is the meanings are implicit. That means you have to literally understand that what the poet wants to express in his poem, right? So when see, for example, here you can see as red as a rose, for example. As I said, red rose. When we say red rose, then immediately we think that it is a kind of a love, or a kind of it gives a very warm kind of feeling, as opposed to yellow rose. So different people have explained that what are the meanings of different shades of rose. But here you can see, when we talk about red rose, it is universal. It is universal, and we have no second opinion when we think about a red rose, right? So here it is a universal descriptor for the color red. That is now commonplace and unoriginal. So using as red as a rose may be a glitch here, because this is being used everywhere now. So that may not be, a very good thing to use in your poetry. So you can give it a twist, and you can leave, you can play with the words or phrases as you like. For that, definitely you need to have a very strong vocabulary and also a very good understanding of the language, or the command of the language you are using it. Only then you can you can experiment with this kind of glitches, right? So again, you see, you're telling a heartbroken friend that there are plenty of fish in the sea. So suppose your friend is, your friend is, maybe his beloved has ditched him. Then you go and console your friend, and you say that, don't worry, if one goes, there are 99 doors open. There are 99 people waiting for you. If you say this, and you use this kind of a phrase like plenty of fish in the sea. So actually today, this kind of phrases are a cliche where you use this now, in everyday usage, you use this thing. So it may not have the right impact in a poetry. Okay. So this can be used in journalism, as I said, but can be avoided in poetry unless it is used to create irony and contrast. So you can use it, but very judicially you have to use this cliches. All right. So this is what are the things which you should remember in this book. DCE 5, book 3, in writing poetry. And these are very important points. These 4 points are very important to keep in your mind while you write a poetry. So the summary of today's lecture is, whenever words carry extra meaning or force, they become symbols. The excess meaning being derived from transference or overflow of context. This is what we are talking about, symbols. And second, the use of imagery in prose differs from that of verse. So imagery in prose rarely attains to the power of a general statement having universal significance as it does in poetry. And the third, we spoke about metaphor, is just like a simile, is based on a comparison between two dissimilar things. Whereas the comparison is implicit in simile, it is explicit in metaphor. Okay. So, and lastly, we discussed on cliche. Cliches do have certain poetic uses. So one can use it for the purpose of creating contrast or irony, or for causing a pleasant shock or surprise by giving an unexpected twist to the cliche. So these are the certain factors which you have to consider. One has to consider when one has to write a poetry. And apart from this, you have to actually read lot of poetry of different genres. You have to read. You can take across the language or across the genres. If you read it, then you will understand that the different periods of writing, the style of writing poetry. So when you are in a real time, then definitely you cannot write, you cannot adopt a style of writing poetry which was prevalent 100 years back. So you have to try to manage this thing, and you can only do this if you really understand the different era of language, like Old English. If you talk about Old English, if you talk about Middle English, if you talk about New English, or the Modern English. So if you have a good idea about those language use in all these periods of language development, then definitely you can do justice to your poems. Okay. So thank you for this session, and I hope learners, you have understood these factors, and you can go back and you can check, you can read lot of poetries, pick up any poetries, read it, and try to find out all these things, where the poet is using symbols, images, creating an image, whether he is using a metaphor, then that metaphor is what is that metaphor he is using it, then what are the cliches he is using it, how he is implementing that or infusing that all these factors in his poetry. So once you do this, and you'll become an expert in it, and when you start writing poetry, I think you will give it a good justice to it. Thank you so much, and this lecture is now open for discussion. Thank you. Yes, I would like that